Welcome to this virtual panel discussion brought to you from a rather hot and sweaty London town by Campaign in partnership with our very good friends at Filter It. I'm Suzanne Bidley, I'm the commercial editor at Campaign, and I'm delighted to be joined today by an impressive lineup of panelists as we explore the topic Out of Darkness, a New Dawn of Media Transparency. So joining me here today are Rumjana Miteva, Head of Performance and Revenue at Secret Escapes, who is in the hot and sweaty UK. Dheeraj Gupta, CTO and co-founder of Filter It, who is in hot and humid Delhi. And Michael Tiffany, co-founder and president of White Ops, who's dialing in from the US, from beautifully air-conditioned Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We're not jealous, really. Welcome to all of you. Hello, thank you for being here. In one slight change to our advertise panel, Marco Gamers, the global digital advertising lead at Sonos, is no longer able to join us today. So to our discussion. The subject is Out of Darkness, a New Dawn of Media Transparency. And what does that mean? Well, we all know that the global pandemic has impacted everyone in different ways across different sectors. And so we'd all also agree that it's critical for brands to reprioritise their marketing budgets and to use their spend effectively. This could actually be a great opportunity. As a result of the global lockdowns, digital and social channels have grown hugely, but performance marketers need to talk to this increased audience wisely. Direct to consumer, direct to customer is now normal, and it demands trustworthy and effective performance marketing. It's no longer simply about how many, it's more about who. This is a critical time then to reinforce brands with careful, tactful strategy and creative, as well as transparency. When done well, the ability of performance-driven marketing to react and adapt with its data-driven, informed approach is crucial in delivering impactful messages at scale. In essence then, today's panel will be discussing how strategy, brand safety and measurement have changed with COVID-19. We'll be talking for about 45 minutes and then there'll be time for questions and answers after that. So if you do have any questions for our panel, please do send them in. Just use the comments box below the video player and we'll get to as many of those as we can towards the end of the session. Now, without further ado, as they say, let's dive into the discussion. I'm going to come to the brand first because we always like to hear from brands first. And so I'm starting with you, Rumjana. As we've seen, the coronavirus pandemic has had sweeping consequences. We've seen marketing budgets slashed, consumer spending trashed, plans entirely changed, and industries shaken up. So in light of that, Rumjana, how much of your budget's been affected and where are you prioritising your spend right now?
Thank you for the question, Suzanne. Indeed, coronavirus has forced everyone into crisis management and the travel industry has been affected tremendously. As you all know, for the last probably 3 months, non-essential travel has been banned by most governments, and that has posed a huge challenge for us. Because Secret Escapes offers luxury deals across the globe. And as a result, our marketing budgets simply vanish overnight. We had to adapt to the situation, refocus our efforts from new customer acquisition to instead dealing with the influx of customer inquiries because people are unable to travel, some of them were stranded, and we helped every single one of them as much as we could. So that was incredibly turbulent time for us as a company, but we're now preparing for the recovery and staying optimistic that as soon as people are allowed to, they would really like to make the most of the summer and the hot weather, as you were mentioning. So as part of our recovery, what we're really looking at is, depending on the market demands of what consumers are really looking for, we'll prioritize our budgets back into campaigns that meet those needs in the best possible way, but also bring kind of short-term and positive return on ad spend for us. So in short, yeah, budgets have been completely slashed or even disappeared from the table But as recovery is coming back, we're starting to refocus our efforts on new avenues.
Wow, it's very sobering, isn't it? It's clear that in this time, digital and social channels have seen huge growth across the world as a result of these global lockdowns. I'm wondering, what would be your one top tip for brands looking to capitalize on that and get maximum engagement from it? And also, what should they actively avoid doing? And I'd like to come first to Michael here.
Well,
the human sat there.
So naturally, there's an increased opportunity to reach people via two-way digital channels, just because of the shift in all of our behavior during this time. But this also has increased the opportunity for kind of adversaries that we fight at White Ops, the hackers, to hide in the noise. Because there are fewer strong signals from consumers who are actually physically visiting stores. There's more opportunity to basically fake it, to create fake visits that look like they're coming from your target audience, but really aren't. So I'd lead off with the suggestion to look at, with a gimlet eye, your measures of success. It's counterintuitive, but many of the performance marketing metrics that we all pay attention to aren't as unfakeable as you might think. If the conversion metrics that we were all paying attention to were unfakeable, then there wouldn't be a fraud problem in digital marketing. It would have already been solved over the past 10 years of everyone trying to boost their conversion performance, right? So our actual metrics for conversion, everything that's not a verified hard sale, all of the proxies that we use for engagement have now been reverse engineered by the kinds of cyber criminals that we're fighting to an extraordinary degree. And the reason why I'm making this my chief recommendation is that the bad guys succeed by going unnoticed. So most of the marketers that are being victimized in this way really have no idea. And so it pays to just start first with a critical evaluation of what are the proxies of success that you're measuring, and ask yourself, are these as unfakeable as I've been assuming?
And that requires partners, I presume. Is it the case that most brands wouldn't have sight of that? I'm guessing they need specialist companies that you might be able to introduce them to.
Right. Well, how is this different from getting to the reality of anything, right? Like even scientific investigation is fundamentally a group activity, because we all only see a narrow section of the full truth. So if you want to get a wide band understanding of what's really happening, everybody needs help.
But it's a tough thing to do, isn't it? What, Dheeraj, what would be your top tip for brands to do and to avoid?
Actually, I wanted to start with a very interesting analogy and something very, very American. So Mr. Donald Trump just did his presidential campaign in Tulsa, right? And it was meant to be the biggest event, and he was super excited, and they had 1 million registrations. 1 million people signed up and said they want to attend and take tickets for that event. And we all know how many turned up. Just about 6,000 people turned up for that event, right? Now, imagine that if bots and, I mean, it's like a performance campaign. It's like a lead campaign where, people are coming in and filling up a ticket, a lead. What I understand is that it actually required an American number which was validated, which means that bots actually filled up 1 million registrations and gave the president of US a fake impression of conversions. And if the president of America can get spoofed, I think we are just mere mortals, right? So I think we need to remember that, what bots can achieve and can do. I completely agree with Michael that, if only performance was the goal, and the end metrics, I mean, I will not even go towards advertisers who are still sticking to vanity metrics and impressions and bounce rates and click-through rates, which are just very, very high level and superficial. I'm talking about sales, I'm talking about add to cart, I'm talking about leads like Mr. Donald Trump had. And even those can actually get spoofed. And what that means is, I just want to raise one punchline here, and I think that's something which, if there's one thing which I would recommend people to take away with, performance marketing has a very interesting nuance. Bad traffic is, or bad performing traffic is obviously bad, but interestingly, amazingly performing traffic is also bad, and that's just very, very counterintuitive. So that's one thing which I would recommend advertisers to be aware about, brands to be aware about. If you're getting amazing performance, you're getting amazing sales, you're getting amazing leads, you might be in trouble, just like Mr. Trump was. And I'll of course talk more about that subsequently. But that's one thing which I would recommend advertisers to be aware about. Too good a performance is too good to have.
That sounds like, too good to be true is always something to be wary of. What do you think of that advice, Ramyana?
I agree that there's a lot of fake news and fake accounts, and we just all need to be very careful of what we're posting, not allowing ourselves to overreact on social media, because that can very quickly backfire and escalate for any brand. So say, step carefully, consider different perspectives, consult your teams, and not just take a single position, because the world right now, it's very polarized. And we're seeing people kind of banning or stopping their accounts on social media altogether. Is that really for the better? Who knows? But yeah, we all have a choice to make, and just make conscious choices for your brand. Kind of be on the safe side, but at the same time, just being silent might be interpreted as something bad. So find your authentic voice. I think that's the most important, and be as human as possible to your audiences. Just show emotions, positivity. I think that's exactly what everyone needs right now. And I think one that is really difficult to strike a good balance is using humor, because that can just really open doors to kind of new loyal customers if it's used right and appropriate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that whole thing of authenticity and collaboration is very powerful. We often hear the phrase, to your point, finding the human in the machine, when we talk about the most effective performance marketing. So the question is, how can brands sort of weed out those bots that you've all been talking about from the digital marketing maze, and really use personalization to create that sort of genuine conversation with your audience that you were talking about, Ramyana? Michael, can you talk us through that a bit more, since you are sitting there emblazoned as human? I think the question has to come first to you, surely.
Oh, lovely. All right. So I have a few recommendations here. Is it both? So you've just heard us talk about how it pays to be skeptical, and how even what at first appears to be a hard to fake metric, registrations that require a US phone number, can nevertheless be faked, and can be faked at extraordinary scale. So what's to be done? Ultimately, there is a harder to fake conversion, of course, which is people who actually show up. Right? So I would augment your analysis of causality when you're looking at the channels that work. Of course, pay attention to the ones that feature these pre-conversion metrics, because that's telling you what appears to be performing. What's often missing is a retroactive analysis on whether the channels that look like they were performing with the softer metrics also tie out with hard conversion metrics, such as actual sales. And here's a subtle pro tip. Sometimes even sales conversions are faked with stolen credit cards. So if you really want a precise understanding of performance, you have to also wait until a chargeback period has expired and then look at true conversions that didn't charge back and connect those all the way up, ideally, your marketing funnel. Second, there's, I think, an extra level of scrutiny that should be applied during your upstream analysis to what kind of content experience is leading to what appears to be great performance. In other words, if you're seeing great performance from a particular channel, you should be asking, okay, what kind of consumer experience is going in front of this awesome conversion funnel? I think that a lot of times marketers have been a little too eager to accept that big fish can come out of chummy waters. And the fact is that long tail, high conversion inventory is also the easiest thing to fake. So it's weird if you're getting amazing performance, supposedly, out of what doesn't look like a great brand experience environment. So going up and really looking at what environment is leading to your supposedly excellent conversion metrics and being skeptical there as well is, I think, a process that can be really revealing. And finally, the reason why there's so much fraud out there is because the bad guys are making money. So the most effective tool you really have is your budget allocation. The way that we make this entire landscape more safe is by making the crime not pay. And so, of course, you can employ superior technology to help you filter out traffic, to really understand what the true humans are versus the realistic looking simulacra. But it shouldn't be entirely on the buyer to clean out all the bad stuff. If you're looking at channels that require a tremendous amount of filtering effort on your part, a very powerful move can just be to cut off that spending, to move the dollars to something that doesn't require so much filtering work on your part. And that's not to say you cut those supplies off forever. Rather, what you're doing is you're creating a financial incentive for the upstream providers of your audience to clean up their own act. And I think we all need to do that in order to change the incentives of perpetrating fraud.
Right, that's a really interesting point, actually. What's coming to you, Dheeraj? What's your view on this? The weeding out of the bots and the getting to the genuine conversation. Are you in line with Michael there?
So I am not actually, and I want to add an aspect which I think is missed here, and that is called organic stealing. So one of the interesting nuances which I talked about in the previous point was that too good a performance is bad. Even if you take any the hardest metrics, and we've had campaigns where advertisers are paying on a cost per sale, including making sure that there are no chargebacks or there are no returns. There is fraud there, and how that happens. And this is, I think, an aspect which is very easily missed by advertisers, is by stealing your organic traffic. What that means is, unfortunately, how the attribution works in performance is something called last click attribution, where a fraudster can just fire clicks and steal your conversion, which was already happening, and a genuine conversion, a conversion of a genuine user, and it will look as if it has come inorganically. I'll just take 2 seconds to explain that. So, for example, Suzanne, you go and you are, say, downloading a great app, right? If I was to know that you're just downloading this great app, if I could just time my click from my side to that app owner and say that, oh, I got this click, most attribution platforms will just link them together and say, okay, Dheeraj is responsible for this person to install the app. And you are, of course, a genuine person. You're not a bot. You are a genuine person. You will do purchases. You will sign up. You'll do all of that. But all of that will get credited to me. Roughly about 10 years ago, one of the first, actions, legal actions against ad fraud was taken. There was a case of cookie stuffing. It was done by eBay and Amazon, where the same thing was done. What was done in there was that Amazon and eBay were paying on a cost per sale model. When a sale happens, they would actually pay a commission to their partners. There were fraudsters who made at that time in 2010. I remember one of them made $35 million in a very short period of time simply by doing cookie stuffing. Unfortunately, something which was identified 10, 12 years ago, this is a case of 2008 roughly, is something which is still applicable today. And in performance marketing, organic stealing is what will always be the blind spot which advertisers will miss out on. I just want to give you another food for thought. A lot of advertisers use tools like Google Analytics for identifying their performance and identifying the source of their performance, right? Now, unfortunately, what they don't know is that the default window of attribution for a Google Analytics is between 3 months to 6 months, which means that if I, as a source, got a user today, for the next 3 to 6 months, if that user comes again, he will always get attributed back to me, even if he comes organically. What that means is a lot of advertisers are effectively paying for their own traffic. They're paying for their own organic traffic, which is simply getting branded as inorganic. It is great quality traffic. It will have all the right metrics. It will have all the right conversion metrics because these are genuine people, but they're basically organic traffic repackaged as inorganic. And I think that's one nuance of performance marketing and fraud in performance marketing, which brand marketers probably never face. In brand marketing, if you're not getting performance, then obviously that impression didn't get served, or that click was bad. But in here, even if you get a sale, even if you get an actual true sale with all your verifications, that sale might actually be organically stolen by a fraudster, and you'll be paying for your own traffic. So I think that's one part which I differ from Michael on, and I think is important. So it's not just about bots. It's not just about machines running and firing clicks and faking leads and maybe doing some install or sales. It's also about your organic traffic being cannibalized and stolen by you and repackaged for you. Last part which I want to cover very, very briefly is always remember that cookie stuffing or organic stealing is a fact of life, and that means that making sure that you are not just protecting against bot traffic and bad quality traffic, but also issues like these are extremely crucial for any performance marketer to be aware about, and to make sure that lessons, for example, of 2008, when cookie stuffing was happening so widely, are unfortunately still not learned. And I think history has a habit of repeating itself. I think that's something which advertisers need to be aware about.
Thank you for that. Good, three very good points. And I like a bit of controversy between our panel. Keep that going. But I'm going to come to Ramyana now, because I wanted to ask you about your messaging around your brand values, and to ask really whether being clearer, stronger, and more sort of upfront about those brand values to your consumers and potential consumers had brought better results from your performance marketing. What you'd seen the value of really being clearer with those brand values has been in your performance marketing. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So having the most relevant, clear and strong message across performance marketing channels is important, and it definitely drives results. But of course, we don't simply take any new ad copy that our brand marketing team has prepared and assume that it will perform better. At Secret Escapes, we love data and we're very passionate about testing every single new concept. So we run constant experiments and we iterate until we can determine a better and really strong ad copy that will bring good results. So I think my kind of takeaway is really that the messaging itself needs to be concise, clear for the consumer. There's a lot of competition out there, a lot of other brands talking about the same propositioning perhaps. So making sure you can differentiate your brand and kind of amplifying that across your other channels. It's really something that should work, but always test. Never assume it will be successful.
Absolutely. By the way, the recording of this will be available on demand 24 hours after the live session finishes, so you can share that with your colleagues or rewatch it at your leisure. It seems that today, more than ever, brands need to ensure that their performance marketing strategy is both trustworthy, targeting the right people, and effective, getting the maximum results. How can they do that best? Ramyana?
Yeah, definitely using data, continuing from my previous point on A/B testing, using any sources of external or internal data that you might have to ensure that you're kind of using your targeting to be on point, so that you can reach the audiences that you really want to be targeting and minimize any wastage. I think in marketing, often people say, 50% of my spend might not be going to the right places, but which 50, I don't know. So using attribution, using more and more data points, testing any new channels, making sure you kind of get the best possible returns. Another prerequisite, in my opinion, is using partners and partnerships with well-established other brands, marketplaces. If you're using third parties, kind of checking them and verifying that you won't just jeopardize your brand. Building those kind of stronger relationships, capitalizing on any tools that might be available to protect your brand. Using placement exclusions could be one example, or if you're advertising on YouTube, using any content exclusions to ensure that your videos are not just going to appear with some, mixed up bad content. And probably another point is leveraging the power of reviews, customer reviews. Although there is already probably way too many of them out there and people are starting to be skeptical which ones to trust and which ones not, I'll still say that the reviews play a role because everyone is curious, and before you purchase something, you know that this information might be available. So making sure you have strong presence, that you're monitoring kind of what's being said out there about your brand, and making sure that you use messaging that speaks about trust and loyalty to your customers.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important when it comes to travel. You always look to see what other people have said who've been there or not. That must be a challenge as well as an opportunity for you, I guess. Diraj, can you talk to that point?
Absolutely. I think one aspect which a lot of performance marketers really don't consider is brand safety in performance. I mean, we see a lot of organizations which have divided their marketing teams between brand marketeers and performance marketeers. The brand marketeers get all their KRAs related to brand safety and making sure the creatives are correct and are and brand safe. And performance marketeers get a free ride. Performance marketeers are not questioned on brand safety. They're not questioned on whether the impressions are served correctly or not. They're actually questioned, how much sales did you get for me? How many leads which actually got converted? Brand safety seems to have be a focus of brand marketers, and I think that's a very key issue which performance marketers need to wake up on. A brand is a brand, and it's everyone's brand, in the sense that for a marketing organization, whether you are a performance marketer or a brand marketer, both are equally responsible for the image of the brand. I'll talk about some very interesting examples of how brand safety can very quickly go for a toss. A lot of times, say on e-commerce, we all go and search for coupons, right? One of the simplest things that all of us do is you're about to check out and you say a coupon code. Oh, let me search. Is there a coupon code on which I can get a discount? And typically you go and you search on Google and you find the first website and you take a coupon code. Guess what? 40 to 60% of coupon codes on these coupon sites don't actually work. They're actually planted there to clickbait you. So you click on that so you can, try and copy that coupon code to apply. Majority of the time, that coupon code will not work because it's an invalid coupon code. But the moment you clicked on that coupon site, the sale which you're about to do will now get attributed to that coupon website. So you've actually straight away converted an organic sale, which was already about to happen, to an inorganic sale. So the advertiser is now paying for that sale, which was as is happening. But now you've also impacted the brand safety of the customer because the customer was excited about getting a 40% discount and some deal which was supposed to be applicable. And he's going to feel cheated that, the e-commerce provider just refused that coupon code and said it's not applicable. So it's very important to understand the nuances of how even a performance marketer needs to be careful about brand safety. So that's one aspect which I think is very important. Second aspect is, I would say choosing the right horse for the right race, right? Till now, a lot of advertisers have focused on brand campaigns and have focused on impressions and CPMs and have focused on, there's a lot of discussions on pre-bid fraud detection and identifying fraud at an impression level. Unfortunately, when you move into performance, no one is interested in the impression. Impressions are not even tracked for a lot of performance campaigns. I mean, if an advertiser or, for example, an eBay or an Amazon are paying on a cost per sale model, they're not bothered about the impression at all, right? They're bothered about the sale and at max the click which came from it. So so if you have a tool or if you have a protection which is looking at impressions and helping you in pre-bid analysis and so on, you're probably going to have very little fraud in your performance campaigns. The fraud detection is not going to work for you because you're actually looking at the wrong area. The area to look out is not at the impression, but at the conversion, which is where the magic of fraud is happening, right? So my sense is that advertisers need to select the right horse for the race. If you're on performance marketing, you need to have tools which can help you and which are tied to performance marketing. If you are on brand marketing, use tools which are focused on impressions and on brand metrics. I think that's my suggestion on how to make sure you have brand safety and fraud protection for your campaigns.
Right. Thank you for that. I should just remind everyone, please do keep your questions coming in and we'll try to get to those at the end. So put them in that comment box below the video player. And I'm coming to you, Michael, don't you worry. Would you add to that?
I'll just add one thing, which is another way to think about brand safety. In addition to being marketers, we're all also citizens of the web. We're users, we're consumers too. Let's fund the web that we want to live in. So it's not just all about conversion metrics. The money that we're spending affects what kind of web we get. And so I think that we can also view our jobs as it's not just about avoiding risk. It's actually about incentivizing awesomeness.
Oh, I love that.
Actually,
sorry.
I just want to add to Michael. Michael, I completely agree. And there's been a lot of analysis which is showing that a lot of money laundering, smuggling, wars, and fundamentalism is actually getting sponsored by ad fraud. Ad fraud is one of the easiest ways for someone sitting out of some country somewhere and making millions of dollars, which can be used to fund a lot of criminal activity. So, Michael, I completely agree with you. I mean, it's not about fraud and conversion metrics. It's also about advertisers to wake up to the fact that they are probably sponsoring some bad activities if they're turning a blind eye as to how they're spending their money. Bots are generally in areas where there will be some of these activities happening actively, and so we need to be careful that we're not talking about something in the air about oh, there's some conversion metrics, or there's some bounce rates, or there's some bad email IDs. This is actually about, are you actually funding terrorism? I think that's a question which all of us need to wake up to as citizens, which ad fraud is potentially funding.
Yeah, funding terrorism or inspiring awesomeness. I think we know where we want to go. Dheeraj, I want to come back to you and ask you another question, actually. As we're seeing an increasing trend and shift towards sort of well-targeted, immersive video marketing post-COVID-19, what would be your sort of top advice, top tips for brands looking to get this right? And again, what should they be avoiding here?
So my suggestion on video campaigns is on two parts. One, I think Rumiana did talk about it, is brand safety. Are you making sure that your ads are running on the right video content which you actually envisage? And unfortunately, a lot of user-generated content websites, video sites have been caught on the wrong foot, where they didn't have the protections in place, and unfortunately, they still don't. A lot of advertisers have a hard time believing that, but identifying and classifying user-generated content in real time and making it brand safe is a very, very complicated task, and especially on video, where the processing required is way too high, which means that there is always going to be an issue of brand safety, which an advertiser needs to take on his own. We're talking to a lot of brands who've now said a zero tolerance policy on brand safety, and they're actually walking that path by putting in add-on tools and protections of brand safety, which I think is important. The second aspect which I want to look at and suggest for advertisers is relevancy. So while it's easy to get lost into this whole thing of fraud and brand safety, it's equally important, especially on video and social, is how relevant is the content on which you're marketing with the message you're trying to convey. And I think relevancy, so I look at it as a whitelist and a blacklist mechanism. A lot of tools like YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram, they offer options like whitelist and blacklist. So blacklist is where you would go for your brand safety protections. Don't put my ads on gambling and drugs and so on and so forth. Whitelist is something which advertisers can use to create relevancy. So, here is a whitelist of channels or videos which are very, very relevant to the message I'm trying to convey. My message is, let's make world a better place. So let's find videos and channels which are talking about that. And I think advertisers playing with whitelist and backlist into their campaigns is the best way to handle both brand safety and relevancy, which I think is going to be extremely useful for getting better performance out of a brand campaign or an impression campaign or a TrueView campaign, which you would typically run.
That's interesting. Anybody else have anything that they want to come in on that about? Anything to add? Or has Dheeraj just done a fantastic job there?
It did cover a lot, but I think maybe one aspect to add is the creative side. So for a lot of brands, historically, you have a professional video team shooting, a voiceover artist, etc. And I think in the given environment, that might not be possible, right? So just embracing that your creative strategy can be very flexible, and also using new tools, new ways to collaborate with creators, maybe using your internal team. And we did something fantastic at Secret Escapes. We asked a lot of employees to just tell us their stories, and we put a film together about welcoming our customers back. And that worked really well. So you don't need to have massive budgets, I think, to run video campaigns, and just allow your creativity to kind of work with what you currently can access. That can be challenging, keeping kind of the high standards that we normally have in terms of your brand perception, but it's certainly, I think, more acceptable for the consumers as well to see content that it's not polished, it's not perfected, but it's authentic, and it speaks from the heart.
That sounds like a really good use of time and budget, and effective way to get that authenticity that you were talking about as well. That's great. So actually talking about reinvention, which I always think is a great word, a great theme, as many brands look to reinvent themselves post COVID-19, how should they look to sort of retarget, to your point, Diraj, relevant offerings while kind of ensuring that brand safety, but also being, sensitive to the ongoing pandemic, because that's such a huge thing about not being sort of tone deaf whilst you're going about trying to protect your brand. Michael, what would be your advice?
I put it this way. There's nothing less cool than trying to be cool. Right?
I know it. I feel it.
Right, so, like, coolness as a cultural value is fundamentally about authenticity, right? And I think that this world is one where our mistakes are on display more than ever before, and no one can be perfect. What you can be instead is human. You can be authentically yourself, and when you let one of the things that makes us human is that we all have vulnerability. None of us are impervious, and we need each other. And it's okay, I think, to take that risk, to show a little vulnerability, just to also show your human side. I thought Rumiana made a really important point about how experimentation should also include humor. It should also include like a little bit of risk taking that's actually just showing your human side, and the goodwill that you buy from that. I think helps build a buffer against also your inevitable mistakes, and it's likewise it's best to own up to them and say, all right, we're just going to do better next time. And I happen to think that the branding opportunities to connect on that human level in the context of performance marketing is really high, precisely because it's so experiment driven, right? So once you have yourself in that experimental mindset, we're going to try something, we're going to see how it works, we're going to possibly make some mistakes, but we're going to learn, we're going to do better next time. That attitude, I think, is actually on display more in performance marketing than in more staid brand marketing, where there is less risk taking. And precisely the spirit of experimentation, I think, unlocks the opportunities to show a little vulnerability.
Absolutely. Diraj, what do you see as sort of best practice in this area?
So, definitely go for performance marketing. I think, as Rumiana mentioned earlier, I think the time for vanity metrics, time for increasing your likes, increasing your fan base on social media is over. Marketers need to demand more performance, and they need to actually put their budgets on that rather than chasing vanity metrics. I think that's one of the clear learnings of this pandemic. Efficiency is the key buzzword here. I think advertisers need to link their cost with revenue. So the marketing cost which they burn needs to get connected with the revenue their brand will get because of the effort. So return on ad spend, the ROAS is going to be the most important metrics. And I know that a lot of advertisers will stand up and say, hey, we keep tracking that. That's one of the metrics we always track. But is that the metrics on which you pay on? It might be the metric which you are optimizing on, but is that the metric on which you're paying on? And I think that's what, the second thing I would want to recommend brands for. The third thing which I would want to recommend brands for is find an owner for organic traffic. So this sounds weird. In fact, I would recommend a new designation, Chief Organic Officer. Okay. The point here is when you're, who in the brand side is responsible for organic traffic? who in the marketing department will say, I stand to make sure that organic traffic increases. I will make sure my organic traffic doesn't get cannibalized by anyone else, right? Unfortunately, in the current marketing structures, normally, the CMO, of course, has that responsibility because he has the overall efficiency of the marketing budget, but it really gets diluted down when teams between brand marketing, performance marketing end up competing. What I'm trying to come at here is it's very easy to show performance if you're just stealing and cannibalizing on your organic traffic. And if you're just converting your organic traffic to inorganic because your bonuses are tied with that, your structures, payment structures, and commissions are tied to that, then you're simply just taking traffic from one hand, which is already yours, into the other and repackaging it and probably getting a good commission. Now, while that was still okay. I mean, it was never okay, but it was still manageable earlier. But I think in this current times of efficiency, I think it's important for brands to make sure that they are owning up to the organic traffic. They are protecting it. They are making sure it is not cannibalized. I'll give just a couple of examples as to how that can very quickly go for a toss. For example, if what is the attribution window you're setting for yourself? If you set up a very high attribution window in your performance campaign, you're simply going to cannibalize on your organic. You're going to get great performance, but you're going to cannibalize on your organic. Now, for performance marketers, it's an easy decision. Let's increase the attribution window, and a lot of tools actually have default long attribution windows. But effectively, when you run that campaign, you're going to show a great performance, but your organic is going to go for a toss. Another example, say from a search kind of a structure, right? Bidding on your brand keywords is going to have the least cost, but it's going to have the best performance because whoever is searching for your brand keyword on Google is obviously going to have a great conversion rate. So it's for a performance marketer, it's a no-brainer to bid on the brand keyword itself because you're going to get great conversion with very little spend. But for an organic owner, for a CMO, bidding on brand keywords might not be such a great idea. Of course, there are aspects to it, but it might not be a great idea because you're just rerouting your organic traffic to inorganic. So I think this pandemic has created important aspects of efficiency. I think it's important for marketers to understand and bring those efficiencies out, and simply saying that we are performance marketers because we are looking at some of the down the funnel metrics is not true performance marketing. You need to actually start putting money where your mouth is, and that's when you will actually get more efficiencies rather than looking at just vanity metrics.
So just to your point there, I'd just like to ask Ramyana, do you think that performance marketing is most effective as a separate team or an integrated team? And where should the sort of focus of the discipline lie for your organization?
Definitely as an integrated team. I think to the point of that Dheeraj was making, we've overcome the issue of performance and organic being kind of head to head. Actually, we're quite fortunate that organic and SEO sits within our performance marketing team. So that's one way of tackling no cannibalization, people being completely aware that we're a multi-channel business, so we can't be just looking at one part of the picture. And when I joined 4 years ago, there were still a lot of silos. The marketing team was built in a different way. So I definitely made it my personal mission to enhance the collaboration, build trusted relationships, because it's not only ultimately the bottom line and bringing better results for the business, but also creating lasting connections with other team members, sharing information, allowing it to flow freely within the organization. And that helped us all to take kind of the right decisions at the right time, really. And yeah, integrated all the way, with the one caveat that obviously you don't want to create dependencies, because if you have too many teams that are involved in the same project, that might cause delays, and then you start moving really slowly until you've briefed all of your stakeholders. So for me, we have autonomy when it comes to execution. Performance is very independent when it comes to running our A/B tests, having access to tools that make us very autonomous as a unit, but we work and collaborate with other teams. So in that sense, we're very integrated.
Sounds totally sensible to me. I'm going to take
not an easy one. Not easy.
I'm going to take a question here from the audience. What about blockchain in all this need for transparency from both a physical and a virtual point of view? Should we go to Michael for that first of all?
Yeah. All right. Let me jump in there. The way that marketers are getting faked out, the mechanisms that I was describing with fake visitors that are actually realistic looking, but they're really automated browsers. Everything that Dheeraj was talking about stealing attribution. When you look at the mechanisms, how that's pulled off, it's hard to see how a blockchain documented list of events would actually help. A blockchain could attest that a robot visited your website, and if that robot looks authentic, then that attestation is going to be wrong. It could be written to a blockchain, or it could be written to a database. The choice of where the record lies doesn't actually help. And similarly, when you look at how attribution is stolen, it's based on the fact that we build last touch attribution models, and then we have certain mechanisms for determining what that last touch was. If you fake those mechanisms, then you get away with the crime. So I'm skeptical that paying the overhead of an inefficient to write to database, which is what a blockchain is, would substantially change the value prop for fraud operations. It doesn't strike me as sufficient enough friction or barrier against committed cyber criminals to change the game for them, which therefore means that it's probably not going to be a game-changing defense.
Fair enough. Dheeraj, over to you. I'm sure you've got something to say on this.
Yeah, I actually agree with Michael on this. I think blockchain and ad fraud has been kind of a buzzword for almost a couple of years now, and it's gone nowhere. And the reason being, as Michael said, it really doesn't help. I think the only area which I can potentially foresee, and there have been some solutions which have got rolled out in this case, is getting some more clarity in the pipe, the programmatic pipe, right? So currently, a lot of tools, if an advertiser need to understand that if I serve this impression, what was the DSP, the exchange, the SSP, and it's a complete mesh, and there are many times 8 to 10 handovers for a single impression. So if you want to understand who were all the parties who were in that impression serving, from a transparency perspective, maybe blockchain might be able to help in just listing out those parties for every impression and making sure that that's there. But I don't think in terms of the fraud, and that's not fraud per se. That's basically trying to bring more transparency into the programmatic pipeline. I think from a fraud perspective, I agree with Michael that I doubt that blockchain is going to substantially change any of these activities.
Fair enough. We have another question here saying, will marketing departments be looking for any new or specific skills from students going into employment now? So Ramyana, if I can ask you that question to begin with.
Very good question. I think hiring at the minute is not a priority. As you know, we have some employees that are on furlough. I think businesses in general, there's lots of small, medium size that don't even have an online presence. So I think digital skills will be in demand. I don't think there will be a kind of specific one to pick. The kind of more skill sets that you can bring to the table, the better. And just being agile, flexible, quick learner. I think that's, especially if you're coming from just graduating, being eager to add value to the business. That will be kind of the attitudes that we're looking for. I think skills can be trained, especially if we have a big performance team like ours. There's already a diversity of skills, so we can quite quickly upskill someone new.
And just to bring a sort of global perspective to this, Dheeraj, what would you say?
I think my view is that digital marketing has slowly tilted from being more of an art to more of a science. I think scales. It's always been a debate whether marketing is an art or a science. I think currently the sales, in my opinion, are slightly more tilted towards the science because of so much technology which is in place, so much machine learning, so much data sciences, that it's more of science and definitely. I mean, no one can say that there is no art involved in it. There is definitely a large component of creativity, but I think my opinion is scales are slightly more shifted towards science. What that means is having skill sets of data sciences, of understanding data, of being able to go through logs and try and figure out what the hell is happening and come out with a conclusion. I think some is a skill which any marketer needs to be comfortable with. And so my suggestion is data sciences and data analysis, I think, is a key role in marketing teams, probably more important than ever before in the world of ad tech. And equally important from a fraud detection perspective, you can actually find a lot of information by just looking at your logs. You don't actually need nuclear physics to try and find ad fraud. You can actually do that by looking at, hey, this is not making sense. But to come to that light bulb of this is not making sense, you have to actually open up the logs and look at your data, which means that data sciences as a skill set, I think, is extremely important.
I'll jump in with something super specific. Like if you are watching this right now and you are young person interested in marketing and you want to differentiate yourself, after this session, check out the new Open AI API. Start playing around with GPT-3. Teach a computer to generate some poetry and some ad copy, and you will blow people's minds. Plus, have a lot of fun. Like looking at the recent breakthroughs. I mean, OpenAI just released this API mere weeks ago, but the recent breakthroughs in machine learning and natural language processing are so fun. Open up so many opportunities to try new things that literally no one has ever been able to try before. And to experiment at a scale that's beyond human scalability is really extraordinary. Imagine running 500,000 different kinds of ad copy in one campaign, and start playing around with performance metrics in a level of variation that can only be achieved through automation with some awesome machine learning. That no one's doing that yet because this is so fresh. So you can launch yourself to the frontier after a weekend's worth of hacking, which is pretty extraordinary opportunity.
Wow. Oh, there's some great advice right there for anyone looking for something to do this weekend. We'll expect to see all the results on Monday, clearly. Right, we're sort of running out of time. So I think a final question to all of you to wrap up, and I'll come around you each individually. What is the key to getting that really fine balance right in an increasingly data-driven, automated marketing world? Ramyana.
I'll start with really building trust. This whole session's been around how do we ensure that our brands are safe, but also that we're investing in the right activity. Upskilling your team will be the other one to kind of keep that fine balance, making sure that everyone has the integrity. And people shouldn't perceive those data-driven algorithms as enemy. They're not coming to kind of take our jobs away. I think it's only going to make our day-to-day a lot easier. There will be tasks that ultimately need to be automated, and I think due to Corona, we have seen that that's accelerated. It's just pushed brands to make those changes overnight. We've all now working from home and being able to do that previously seemed maybe impossible, but things are changing very rapidly. So we need to have that mutual understanding of the technology that's coming out, challenging it, of course, never kind of purely accepting it, that it will do better, but it's constantly learning and improving. And the more input that we can give it, I think the better it will get. So we really need to build that trust and embrace the benefits that the new technology is bringing.
Excellent. Michael, what's your view?
I'd say that economic downturns are good for innovators. They're bad for literally everyone else. In a time like this of unprecedented change, experience matters less. And that means that everyone is on a level playing field, and the winners are going to be the experimenters, the tinkerers. Those are the people who take advantage the most of changing conditions that throw off the time-worn experience of so many others. So I would say the most important thing is to be action-oriented. Try new stuff. The now is you have the absolutely lowest cost to try new things, to be innovative. And so rather than try to avoid mistakes, try to avoid risks, I'd say question everything, try new stuff. Don't be complacent. The cost of innovation has essentially gone down. The risks of doing nothing have gone up. So being action oriented is the way to separate yourself from the pack.
I shall remember that. Note to self. Finally, Dhiraj, the last word to you. What's your view?
I'll probably go a little lower level than Michael, I think. 3-4 things. Firstly is bring focus on efficiency. Budgets have got slashed, which means that every penny counts. Focus on bringing efficiency into your campaigns. Make sure that you're paying for performance and not just optimizing or asking for performance. You're actually putting money where your mouth is. Remember the example which I started with. If the president of United States can get impacted by bots who are filling up a registration through a million times, then just use that as a way to counter yourself if you feel anytime overconfident on your skill set of fighting against bots. Number 3 is don't get into I would call it the 2% fallacy, right? Courtesy the Big Bang Theory. A lot of times I've heard people saying, hey, ad fraud is extremely low, and my tool has shown that it's in the range of 2 to 3%. Ad fraud is nowhere close to single digits. It's definitely much more than that. Just in this example itself, 1 million registrations and 6,000 people who finally attended it. So that's the percentage of impact which it is. So if you're saying 2% fraud on your campaigns, maybe you're not looking correctly. You're just looking at a fake image of what is being shown to you. And I think those are some of the points which I think I would want to end up with as key actions during, especially this time, where efficiency and making sure you're getting the best bang for your buck are extremely important.
Right. Thank you for that. So it sounds as though we all need our eyes to be opened, and I hope that everyone has had their eyes slightly opened during this session. I'm afraid this is all that we've got time for now today, but I hope that you have enjoyed it. Thank you very much to you, our live audience at home or wherever you are, for tuning in, and to our panelists, Ramyana, Michael and Dhiraj, for sharing their expertise with us today, and to Filter It for partnering with us on this session. As I said, this recording will be available on demand from tomorrow, so please do share with colleagues, or if you're not tinkering this weekend on some experiment that's going to save the world, watch it again, why not? So thanks everyone for tuning in, and have a nice rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.